Kwame Kilpatrick pleaded passionately today with Judge Nancy Edmonds to give him a new lawyer. The former mayor and attorney Jim Thomas have been together since 2008, and now the judge says they'll have to stay together.
You got challenges that you're going to run across.
You had got to a point now where it was over with. But if it was known like that and you said it, why couldn't they replace it? Your attorney.
They could have, but federal judges have immense power. And I know people hear that all the time, but you have no idea unless you've been in trial or in the process. You don't really understand how much power they have. You often hear on the federal level that we need to give more discretion back to the judges. Well, there are people who have what they call good judges that want that. But for the most part, that wouldn't be helpful either. We just need to make sure the law says what it needs to say and stop putting all of these things in it that gives prosecutors the leverage to cross-reference things and all this kind of stuff, to add up dope, to take ghost dope that nobody ever saw and give people life, because it starts being based on the humanity that's in front of them. Let me just say that. But then let me talk about this. My attorney took a witness against me to the grand jury and coached him as he was testifying against me in his testimony to put me away. I didn't find that out until a couple of days before the trial was to begin with the jury selection. I was just happened to be going through discovery from the trial and saw it. And I called him and everything. You got that in the book. I tell about it in the book. But when I got there, I was like, man, you got to get off the case. What are you doing? Mm-hmm. And I didn't know about the other two conflicts. I just knew about this one. Right. And I went to the judge myself. She wouldn't see me. But that day she called a hearing to discuss it, in her chambers hearing. When I got there, it was like the team. You asked the question, why wouldn't they take him on? The team was there, and he was on their team. It was the prosecutors, him, and the judge. And it was real interesting to see that room. And then everybody that spoke, including the prosecutor and judge, he has a tremendous reputation in this building. I'm not taking him off. The prosecutors, we've had great inner working with Mr. And I said, Your Honor, with all due respect, what does this have to do with my constitutional rights? Right. My right to conflict-free counsel. I mean, I understand he might be the greatest guy ever, but not for me, Right. Right. But the fix was in. She said Detroit needs closure. I said, Judge, Your Honor, with all due respect, Detroit's not a defendant in this case. Right. It was just ridiculous. Everybody in that room has sworn oath to protect the defendant's rights, prosecutors, judge, and the defense attorney. They all have an equal right to protect my right to a fair trial. They didn't do it. We find out that there are two more conflicts. She didn't ask about them in that hearing. The Free Press does an article about how his firm is representing the county, Macomb County, which is right next, adjacent to Wayne County, where Detroit is. They're suing me on the very same RICO charges that are in the criminal case, and his firm is representing the county. So that trial is going on upstairs on 8. We're on 3. Simultaneously, his firm is on the other side of an issue against me, and he's supposedly defending me. But if he got a guilty verdict in the criminal case, it enhances their ability to get $54 million from the city. So I started to see the nexus between why they were keeping him on. Mm-hmm. It was the fix was in. Mm-hmm. Here's the issue, though. I lost the criminal trial, and I represented myself in the civil trial. And I won representing myself from a jail cell, going in the case manager's office and arguing my case, writing my own motions, and I got it dismissed with prejudice. So I can get it dismissed on the civil side, but I couldn't win in the criminal side because the judge would not take this guy off of my case. And so It was really interesting to see, but she's been biased the entire time. She was biased in the beginning, and she was biased at the end. But I like to say this, even when I got in the cell and you read it, mm-hmm. the book, her words end up being the catalyst for the greatest change in me. And so at the same time, I know she was biased. I know she was also used by God to help transform my life. And so for that, I'm thankful. Yeah, I'm thankful. But this system, I'm hopeful to enter into the discussions. I started this weekend with a couple of organizations because, the president now, love him or not, he's not focused on criminal justice. Democrats had the presidency, they had the House and the Senate at one time. Now it's a tie in the Senate. They still haven't moved the criminal justice bill. Joe Biden would have to go against himself to change what's happening now in the criminal justice system, because his bill is the one that caused the most disaster in the federal system. So I'm hopeful that we can start having discussions about how to do things without Congress, because there's some simple regulation changes, rule changes that we can use to stop getting people from getting so oppressed in this system.
You know, and I hear that a lot. You know, I was telling you the other day that me and my partner had just left 2 prisons up in Ohio and speaking at the prisons. And that's what you hear a lot from those guys, is that it's almost like Trump was more on their side when it came to that compared to Biden when it comes to that. And it's like, I guess they're reading information on that, but you have enough information on that to even make that statement, right? Absolutely.
And Donald Trump, you know, Donald Trump is Donald Trump. The personality, the stuff that he said, I know it's gotten on some people's nerves and really had people have an immediate emotional reaction. But he was the most helpful president that we've had in the area of criminal justice, period. Because he was the bully that could get it done.
Right.
Criminal justice issues are not popular for legislators. It's like, why should I get involved in this? Especially now, you got all these young folks out here going crazy, killing folk all over America. Every city has had a rise in crime, rise in violent crime. Nobody wants to hear about anybody voting for a bill that would give opportunity for people to have mercy or a second chance coming out of prison now. No, these people are all criminals, categorical. I hate lawyers. I hate politicians. Prisoners need to stay. We categorize people all in one bag. And so the inmate that's in there that got caught when he was 19 with 83 grams of crack, and now he's sitting there at 45. Something that he should have got 5 or 6 years for. They put him in a conspiracy, cross-referenced him with the 2K1 and gave him life in a conspiracy with 20 people, of which he don't even know 19 of them. That happens over and over and over. That's not an isolated case. That's how they prosecute. That person got a life sentence for never having more than $2,000 in his pocket, and he was 19 years old. So and he's never done anything nonviolent. And a lot of these people are first-time offenders. Why don't we have opportunities for these people to get another chance? So you can make a mistake or you can mess up bad at 19, 20 in a nonviolent way, and you never get out of prison. Most Americans, if you had that discussion with them at their coffee table, would be like, that's probably not fair.
Right.
And now more and more poor whites are going in because of meth.
Yep.
Yeah, and so now you get the issue, just like we had with the opioid crisis versus the crack crisis. You're getting the issues now with a lot of young whites going in the prison system now because of the meth problem that is in Iowa and Nebraska and all these other places around the country. And so it's now people want to have the discussion because they're getting tougher and tougher on meth laws. So these guys were coming in and getting 3 or 4 years. Now they're getting 17 and 20 years, and they're 19, 20, 21 years old. And so these are conversations that we can get. I went and spoke at the SOSO, which is the Social Conservative Conference. And I was trying to get the nexus, between the message of life, the message of redemption, the message of Christ. And if you really care about life, then you got to care about the life after it's here too. You can't just care about the preborn life. We want people to have equal opportunity to justice, equal opportunity to access for opportunity. And so that's what we were talking about there. I ended up getting a standing ovation.
Wow.
Because I believe that people don't know the facts. I believe
they don't. We're so busy running around doing, everything. You don't have time to even slow down to even understand that.
Yes. And so everything is kind of soundbite because that's what the media needs to do. They need to show you something in 5 minutes, the whole thing, 3 or 4 or 5 stories, and then get you over to sports. So as people don't have really time to actually have a conversation about what's happening in America with over 9 million people cycling through the county jails, a few 100,000 people in the federal system, and almost 2 million people in the state systems around the country. 85% of the people that I just named, they're getting out within 5 years. What do you have for them? Right. What are you doing in your towns? They getting out. There ain't nothing you can do. They're coming out of there. 85% of those millions of people, they coming out of there within the next 5 years. So those are the people that are committing the new crimes. But the same recidivism track that says 80% of them come back in 3 years, is actually reversed if somebody has served over 15 years. Only about 20% of them come back. So why aren't we taking the people from the longest and really starting to figure out what happened with them? What has changed in them? Right. And it's just some data I think that we can employ in some of these conversations to really get people to move, particularly from a policy perspective. I'm so hopeful, Tony, that I can get in front of some of these people, not just Democrats, but I believe the Black Caucus needs to be stronger on this. They really do, as a unit. I also believe the Mexican caucus and all of the other folks that are in there, but particularly conservatives. This is an issue of life, and it's an issue of fairness and second chances, redemption.
And it takes, somebody like you, because they're going to try to tear you down as you start moving that way. I already noticed that. I saw a video of one of the young ladies talking about you and the things that you were doing. And I said, the Kill Kwame campaign is still out here now. So I'm just telling you that.
No question.
It takes somebody like you to break through that. Being a part of the system, you see it more clearly than you probably saw when you was a mayor. You didn't, by being a part of it, now you see it. I remember in the book when you talked about when they came in and moved you up north. Remember, and you didn't know where you were going, and you make sure that you like and subscribe and hit the all button and all that kind of stuff, because we're going to have a lot of good interviews on this podcast.